Welcome back to Dirty 20, everybody. Today, before we get to our show, I want to remind you about our amazing giveaway. Go check out our interview with Mike from Squiggle Studio. If you want to win a free mini commission painted by Mike himself, make sure to like the video on YouTube, share it on Facebook, and tag either myself, Edward Burgos, or our producer, Jason Cherot, Cherot, to enter our prize giveaway. Today we close off our series on encounter building, and we're hitting my favorite of the three, which is combat. Make sure to check out our videos on exploration encounters and social encounters if you haven't already. In order to talk about combat encounters, we have to talk about CR. Now, CR is an abbreviation that you'll have probably seen if you've read any of the Wizards of the Coast 5th edition books, and this refers to something which is challenge rating. This is the way that they try to explain to us dungeon masters or players the difficulty that a particular monster might have. So, on any given stat block, you will have a section that says CR rating or challenge, and a number next to it. Anything from, I think it's 1/4, all the way up to like 15, 20, even higher for some of the crazy villains. This number represents the difficulty rating that it would pose to a group of 4 characters of that given level. So if you take a monster with a CR rating of 1, that means that this monster would be a decent challenge for 4 level 1 characters. Now, we have to be a little bit careful about CR rating because it's not exactly a science. It's a bit more of an art and more of a guideline, I should say. Basically, you have something like a shadow, for example. Now, this monster has a CR rating of 1/2, which means that you could potentially throw 2 at them or to a party of 4 level 1 characters. Now, I would say that shadows are disproportionately tough, and it's true for a lot of undead because they're not affected by weapons that are not magical, for example, or they have things like drain attacks which can be really, really deadly, so watch out. There's a website called Kobold Fight Club, which is really handy for building encounters and seeing how deadly something might be against your party. You can put in how many characters you have in your party, what level they are, and then populate the list with what you think you would like to throw at them. And it will tell you if this is an easy or a moderate, a hard, or a deadly encounter. Now, you'll be surprised if you play around with this website how often a deadly encounter is something that you thought, oh no, my guys could absolutely deal with this. But that's kind of the art behind it, in that you have to learn, A, what your characters are able to do, and B, kind of what the monsters are able to do. Now, if we talk about CR rating and combat encounters, we've got to talk about XP. Now, XP is experience points. And this is, if you've ever played a computer game, RPG, you kill monsters, you gain experience points, you level up. It's exactly the same in D&D. But I will say that personally, I prefer something that's called milestone progression, which means that rather than, okay, you killed 2 ogres and 3 zombies, that equals this many XP. Whenever we reach a particularly important moment in the campaign, then after that, I'll say to the guys, okay, everyone level up to the next level. And I tend to keep everyone at the same level. Different people have different preferences with regards to XP. I just find that XP for monsters can lead to a situation where your players will want to kill everything that moves, and that isn't always kind of what you want them to be doing. You want them to be negotiating sometimes, or solving issues without violence. Now, again, a lot of DMs, they will give experience for even more experience, possibly for dealing with a situation without using violence, but it's a little bit amorphous, which is why I like this milestone leveling up system. So leading on from that, I think that good combat encounters tend to be ones that propel the story forward in some way. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily, fighting the big bad, every week or no combat, but they can be, easy, they can be deadly, but they have to have a reason. Case in point, I'm not a big fan of wandering monster tables and random combat encounters. I think that, if you're in the wilderness and you come across something that has no bearing on the story and it starts killing some of your players, that can feel very anticlimactic. So, like I say, I like to think that combat encounters are about propelling the story forward and making the campaign more exciting with every combat encounter. One way to make your combat encounters really feel very kind of heroic and almost like, in the movies, in Avengers movies and things like that, when the heroes are kind of just batting away, bad guy after bad guy, is something that comes from 4th edition, which is called Minions.
Hello. Hey, oh, ketchup aquí. Sí, sí.
Minions are kind of smaller examples of bad guys who have same stats as the ones that you find in the monster manual, but they only have 1 hit point. Now, what that means is that if your guy hits one, he's going to kill it, right? So you can really have a lot of them. Action economy, you're going to hear that more as you get into D&D, is where it doesn't really matter how many hit points something really has. It still has its action and therefore is still a threat, right? And this is where having a lot of minions giving you more action economy makes things quite deadly, even if it's just a bunch of goblins, but you're able to mitigate that by the fact that they only have 1 hit point. And it means that your monk with his flurry of blows is going to knock 4 or 5 out in their turn, and they're going to feel super heroic. And I like that. My favorite combat encounter that I've ever put together was actually one that lasted a whole session. And it was one of these kind of milestone moments. It was called the Battle of the Troll Hills. And it was one where my characters had been helping out a winery in the area and found out that there was a witch, a hag, that had it in against the owners of the winery. And a bunch of things happened, but she ended up kidnapping one of their kind of contacts or NPCs that help them out occasionally. And she'd kidnapped him, and she was forcing the PCs to return this magical gem that the owners of the winery had stolen from her. Now, what was really cool about this was that it had been a few sessions of setting up, and the players understood that this was a hag that was very powerful. She had quite a lot of helpers, so to speak. And so they went about trying to get their allies to help them out. They went to a lord, asked him for help. They went to some contacts in the underground and asked them for help. And they contacted their kind of dwarf contact in the kind of dwarf hold that was right next to the city, and asked them for help. Then they went off, and what I did was I had the hag, which is obviously a very powerful spellcaster. But then I had her goblins and orcs, which they'd kind of confronted in the past. And I had quite a lot of them. I was using minions. And I also I had the players worried. So they meet on the kind of battleground. and there's a little bit of back and forth, and combat starts. Now, obviously, one of the things about combat is keeping track of initiative, whose turn it is. I personally prefer to roll once for all the bad guys, and that's when they go. And also keeping track of the things that your bad guys can do, and, you know, making sure that you're answering any questions that your players have. Now, keeping track of combat is one of the hardest things to do. And so I recommend any kind of starting DMs to just have smaller combats, easy combats. Don't worry if the players just kind of wipe the floor with your bad guys. The last thing that you really want is an unexpected TPK, which is a total party kill. Because, you know, no one's expecting it, and it does happen, but I think that it's the kind of thing that you want to try and avoid, especially early on. So, back to the Battle of the Troll Hills. Now, here, the combat started, and I had the hag casting some spells, had orcs and goblins who were getting pretty much, like, just creamed. And I also had some, like a ballista, and some guardsmen who were operating the ballista, who had been sent to help out. And so, you know, the players are kind of feeling quite confident. But one of the things that I really enjoy in a combat encounter is having changes of dynamics, right? Because it's very easy to fall into the I attack, I hit, I miss, she attacks, she hits, misses, you know, and you just kind of go backwards and forwards with that. So adding kind of reinforcements or things like that can be very interesting. So the players heard a massive kind of crash, and a giant, a hill giant, comes out of the forest. And, you know, suddenly loads more bad guys start appearing. And the players suddenly started thinking, oh no, we may have to, like, run. So they try to get to the hag to grab their colleague and kind of run. And this was really exciting. It had a nice kind of level of tension where you didn't know which way it would go. And obviously, music can be really helpful in that. Really kind of help to set the tone. There's so many playlists out there. YouTube is a wonderful resource for hour-long kind of combat music for RPGs, Elder Scrolls, Spotify. There's loads of resources out there. So the guys are now getting themselves to a point where it's a couple of hits and people are going to start going down. And at this point, I have the dwarf reinforcements, their allies, kind of come and not necessarily save the day, because that can feel a little bit disingenuous, a little kind of deus ex machina. So they came in and they turned the tide, is how I would describe it. And the guys kind of felt much more confident, and they finished off the encounter wonderfully. And it was a really, really good session. I will say it was quite long, because it was a whole, like, 4-hour session of just combat, pretty much. But there'd been a lot of build-up to it. So I would say that combat encounters are another tool in the arsenal. They're not necessarily vital in every single session, but I do think that they appeal to a lot of gamers, a lot of D&D players, because, you know, you want to kind of blow off some steam and kill some goblins. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening to our episode today on combat encounters. What are some great combat encounters that you've run or you've participated in? How do you build your combat encounters? Do you use some of the resources like Kobold Fight Club? Do you use the CR rating? Thanks once again. Give us a like, smash that subscribe button, and as always, keep slaying. If you've enjoyed this content, then please smash that like button, subscribe, share this around online, and come and visit our website, www.lavictoriaproductions.com, to see all our past episodes, as well as our blog posts and all the stuff that we're currently working on at La Victoria Productions. Why not reach out to us and tell us what you think of our videos? You can reach us on Twitter. @MouthLaVictoria is our producer. We are also on Instagram. I am Enano LVP, and our producer is Jazzy J Cherot. We're also La Victoria Productions on Facebook and LinkedIn. Come on by and let us know what you think.